Game Changers Media Network, Game Changers Magazine, Voices of the Village podcast, and I'm back with attorney James Mays celebrating 50 years providing legal services across the state of Georgia. How you doing this morning, Attorney Mays?
I'm feeling really good, man. I tell you, it's really an amazing thing that I've been able to last 50 years in the state of Georgia as an attorney. And I'm really appreciated everything that you've done for me to get us to this point.
Man, we appreciate you for taking the time out during this holiday season. We just saw a write-up about you in the Heron Bay Gazette.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that write-up and how it came about and how they honored you in that publication, you know, sharing your story over the past 50 years.
My wife and I moved down here from St. Louis 19 years ago, and we were looking around in the Atlanta area for a place where we could settle, and I wanted to play golf at that time. And we found Heron Bay and moved into Heron Bay. People were moving in droves at that time. So we've been here 19 years and we know quite a few people. During that period of time, that 19 years, we've tried to stay busy, tried to stay involved with the community, and to let people know that we're here if we can help them. I had not intended to continue to practice law once I retired in St. Louis, but once I got here and my neighbors found out that I was a lawyer, they started asking me to do particular legal work for them, and it just led one thing to another until I just decided to open up my business again. I was involved with several of the community committees in Heron Bay over the years.
Okay.
And a couple of years ago, I was given a really nice award as one of the outstanding citizens in Heron Bay. But recently, I had a short meeting with the chairman of the Heron Bay board. And in our talking, I mentioned to him that I was celebrating my 50th anniversary this year.
Right.
And he said, listen, let us do an article in the Heron Bay Gazette about their 50 years. And I agreed to that. And so they did a beautiful article for me.
Yes, I saw that article, had the opportunity to kind of gaze over it. I look forward to reading the article in its entirety.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm pretty sure it goes deep into some of the things that you accomplished over the past 50 years, you know. Now, I remember we were riding in a car, we were handling some business, working with my son, a case with my son. You were the representing attorney for me for, you know, getting my son legitimized, et cetera, et cetera. And you were talking about in 1974 how many African Americans hadn't passed the Georgia bar. Am I correct? Am I quoting that correct?
You're quoting that correctly, yeah.
Tell me about that.
In 1973, I finished the law school at the University of Iowa in 72.
Okay.
And moved back to Atlanta as a professor at Clark Atlanta University. And in 73, I did not take the bar in 73, but a group of other black people did. And not one black person in the state of Georgia passed the Georgia bar in 1973.
Wow.
As a result of that, some people decided to bring a lawsuit because they thought there had been some kind of trickery, some kind of racial discrimination against black candidates.
Okay.
So in 74, when I took the bar, I think about 20 of us passed the Georgia bar in 1974.
Wow.
And that was a real nice article in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution with a big picture of the group of us who passed the bar that year. It's really a wonderful time. So
you're telling me before 1974, right, Georgia had no African-American attorneys?
Well, I'm not saying that. No, they did. There were African-American attorneys here, but something happened in 1973 which caused some people to want to bring a lawsuit because they felt that there must have been some kind of trickery or some kind of discrimination to identify black people.
Right,
they didn't believe that could happen, that no black person in the state of Georgia would pass that examination.
Okay.
And so as a result of that lawsuit, the next year, and I'm not saying that there was trickery, I don't know.
Right.
But all of a sudden, a group of us passed the bar the next year in 1974.
And it was about 20 of you guys?
20, somewhere in that range, 15 to 20 of us passed the bar in 1974 in Georgia.
Okay, and how did that make you feel being an African-American attorney? I mean, Georgia, we know, came up out, during that time, was coming up out of the Jim Crow era, was coming up out of the Martin Luther King, you know, being assassinated era, you know. So studying law for African American attorney,
Right.
I'm pretty sure you guys held great value and honor to being able to serve your community as legal aid.
Correct. And what was surprising was that I didn't know about that lawsuit when I took the bar in '74.
Okay.
That was unknown to me. I didn't learn about that until I met Marvin Arrington several years later, who told me that he had been involved in bringing that lawsuit against the state of Georgia. So it made me feel good and proud that I could pass the bar, but I did not know about what some of us consider to be racial discrimination in the previous years.
Right, right. Now you stated that you graduated from the University of Iowa. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. Iowa. What made you go to CAU? When did Clark Atlanta University come into play?
I was in the Air Force in the '60s,
Okay.
and as I was getting out of the Air Force, I was looking around for a college
Okay.
for me to attend, and it was in July of 1965.
Wow.
And I approached Howard University, and they said, Mr. Mays, we can accept you, but we can't accept you in September, it's too late, but you can come in January.
Right.
And I said to myself, no, I know me. If I put this off until January, I'm probably going to get a job and I would never go to college.
Right.
So on my way home to Gary, Indiana, I was in Chicago, and I was passing Michigan Avenue in Chicago, which was a huge, wide street in Chicago. I was crossing the street at the stoplight, and I had my duffel bag on my shoulder.
Okay.
And somebody said, Jim! And I looked up, and here was a friend of mine who I had gone to high school with. He said, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going over to Gary. I'm going to take the South Shore train over to Gary. He said, get in, man. He said, I'm getting ready to go to Gary.
Okay.
So we started talking. I said, well, what have you been doing for the last 4 years since we finished college? He said, I've been down in Atlanta at Clark College.
Okay.
And he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm trying to get into college. He said, look, man, I'm going to call down there, and I'm going to talk with them, get you in this fall, and you don't have to worry about it. He was the only, I think, football All-American to ever go to Clark Atlanta University. Probably one of the few that ever went to Clark.
Wow.
And as a result, it had influence and got me into Clark that fall. And I ended up coming to Atlanta rather than Washington, D.C. or some other place.
Okay. And going to a historically black college university in the South, I'm pretty sure during that time, you know, it was Clark University at the time,
Clark
right?
College.
Clark College. Okay.
Right.
So, I mean, you had to be between two different dynamics, going from Gary, Indiana, to Atlanta in the South. You know, to
Right.
Mecca. What did that transition feel like for you? You know, going after your goal and
Right.
studying law.
Well, I grew up in the North, although my parents are originally from Georgia.
Okay.
And I grew up in Indiana, but I spent 4 years in Massachusetts, which some people would consider a very liberal place.
Yes, it is.
We would say that it's the extreme from Georgia. And so coming to Georgia, for me, I didn't know what to expect, and I was
Okay.
kind of worried. Dr. King was here in Atlanta at the time and very involved, and of course the civil rights movement was in heat. It was in heat at that time.
Okay.
Things were very hot.
Okay.
And so when I came down, quickly I got involved in the movement.
Right.
And we, on Clark Atlanta University, we formed our own black student organization. It was called Pride.
Oh, wow.
People Ready in Defense of Ebony, we called it.
Okay.
And we produced our own magazine at Clark called Your Mama is Black,
Oh, wow.
which everybody said, wow, that's a really unusual name.
Wow.
But we had heard that name in a poem that somebody had read.
Okay.
Where it said, your mother is black.
Okay.
But we took it and said, no, we're going to make this more black. We're going to call our newspaper Your Mama is
Your
Black.
mama is black. Okay.
So we produced our own newspaper every week and had a serious black organization at Clark Atlanta University, Clark College at that time.
Clark College. Okay.
And we formed a black organization for the 4 or 5 black colleges.
Okay.
And so I was the chairman of the 5. I was the chairman of the Black Student Organization at Clark, and I was chairman of the university-wide Black student organization, which included Morehouse and Spelman, Morris Brown, Clark Atlanta University, Atlanta University, and Clark College. So I was the chairman of both of those organizations.
Oh,
and
wow.
In my senior year, I was elected president of the student body.
Okay.
So at one time, I was president of the student body, president of Pride, president of the Atlanta-wide Black student organization, and president of the Pan Atlantic Council at Clark Atlanta University. So you asked the question of how did I get to Iowa? I happened to be making a speech as the president of the student body at Clark Atlanta one day, and the bishop of the Methodist Church happened to be in the city of Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
And came over to Clark, heard me speak, and when he went back to Iowa, he said, hey, there's a guy in Atlanta, I want you to offer a full scholarship to the law school. So they wrote me and asked me if I would accept a full scholarship. At the same time, I had an offer to the Bank of New York as a banker. And
Okay.
I refused that offer with the Bank of New York and took the offer to go to Iowa to become a lawyer.
Man, we're going to talk about that. We got to go to a commercial break, but we got attorney James Mays celebrating 50 years serving our community in legal aid across the state of Georgia. You guys stay tuned. Game Changers Magazine, Game Changers Media Network, Voices of the Village podcast. Ease up.